Okay, today on My Two Cents with Mark, I want to discuss our gardens were starting to look tired. It was the heat of the summer, and now we got a tropical storm. Is it worth saving, or do I need to rip out all my flowers? Let's go over some of your options. Many of us, our gardens look like this a day or so ago. They look like this. Our pollinator slash hummingbird garden that we've been experimenting with the last year. So basically our own little trials where I've been plugging in every potential hummingbird plant and pollinator plant that we sell to see how they work. It was starting to grow in nicely. I was starting to get a nice border of blue salvia, but now I have giant holes. I have plants that were starting to go dormant, but then we're just tattered. Now, this isn't all just from the storm. Luke's girls have been coming through, and you can see these poor beds get beaten up. We're in dense shade. Luke's chickens have been coming through and digging big holes, picking away at some of the roots of the plants. But after this storm, this is all just tattered. Some spots, like the Senorita Rosalitas here, the root ball itself is just popping right out of the ground. This poor plant got double whammy. I can see where the chickens have been digging it out, and the root ball popped right out. But what I'm looking for is that plant is still lush and green and covered in flowers. It doesn't even know it's fallen over yet. Same thing with a lot of these other plants. So what I'm looking for is these tall plants are going to be a little bit harder, but again, it's still intact. This is a great pollinator plant, and if I stand this back up, the plant looks perfectly fine. All the foliage is still looking good, and the flowers are all over. And even as I'm playing with it, I don't know if you can see the little fly and bee right there. It's just covered in plants. So the trick is, I find, is give them a good drink of water, because the roots have clearly been compromised. You can see where the roots are popping out of the ground a little bit. And then give them some fertilizer. And what we're gonna do is we're just gonna pull these things gently back up, stake them up. And this year in particular, the challenge is even getting stakes, but I'm actually probably gonna use a lot of the branches off of the trees as stakes, so they blend in a little bit more. But I'm just gonna go through here and I'm gonna just stake these plants back up. If they look good, then I just need to stand them back up, but those roots are compromised. It's not gonna stay up on its own anymore. But we can save the plant aesthetically by standing it back up, pounding a few stakes on either side of it, and then just stop babying that plant. Plants like this was a cardinal flower. I knew it wasn't a good spot for it. I thought we were keeping up on the watering pretty well because everything else was growing and looking good. But this is my indicator. That's like a half boggy plant. These poor things, that ground was getting pretty dry. So, but what I like to look for is at the base. It's already trying to bounce back. And so plants that are like this, I'm just gonna cut them off right at the bottom, a couple inches above that green foliage, and let them just start flushing from the bottom again. If this was an annual, kind of like some of these Robina bonariensis that are alongside it, these Robinas keep getting trampled by the chickens, but the bees and the butterflies love them. And they're just flowering machines, so they're just gonna keep going all season long. So I'm gonna trim off some of these and we'll stand them back up. Even some of these blue salvias. I mean, I got a giant gaping hole now where I once had a line of them, but they're tough. Stand it up. And then the trick is to just go right down the line, trim off anything. These echinacea are not coming back, but you can, again, all the growth at the bottom. So for perennials, just trim them back, neaten up the garden, and give them space, give them water. And I'm just gonna do that right through the whole garden. And so all of these, again, if they look good now, as long as you don't damage them when they get propped up, they're gonna stand back up. They just need to be supported. But the trick is food. These poor plants have been growing since spring, and many of us fertilized when we planted the plants in April or May. But then the plants are pittering out. At this time of year, once a month, we go through and add a nice organic fertilizer. I like Espoma. It's our house brand because I find it just works. but you pick your brand that you like and work with it. But just remember that they are clearly much bigger plants than they were when you planted them in the spring, but yet they haven't been fed in a couple months. So I'll go through and I'll put down a granular fertilizer around the base of these and start watering, and a lot of these plants are going to just say thank you, and they're going to flush back, especially some of the roses, a lot of the perennials that are rebloomers, especially all my annuals. They're just going to say thank you. I might lose flowers for a few weeks, but they'll come back. But one trick is, you can see with this little agasachi here, the whole root ball came up too. If I sprinkle a granular fertilizer around the perimeter of this, it is not coming back. It doesn't even know it's there. The roots are out of the ground. So there are no roots in the soil out here. So in this particular case, I'm going to do both. I'm going to put the granular fertilizer a little farther out because that's a slow release fertilizer. Give it something to reach for as it roots out. But I am going to hit it with a Miracle-Gro liquid fertilizer, because what I can do with that is I can soak the whole plant down, and then I can saturate the root zone right there, and I'm quickly giving it food right at the roots. This poor plant went through a trauma. It's going to grow back all its root system. So if I had Neptune's Harvest here, I would do a liquid organic fertilizer over the top, because that avoids the roots, and a lot of the nutrients will just go right through the foliage. And so I find that putting those two things together, nice granular, follow up with routine watering. So I know that was a long one, and there's a lot to it, but that's kind of the trick. We have so much more time to enjoy the season. Prune back anything that doesn't look good. Water, 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 and fertilizer. Give them a chance to come back. Any perennials that are looking pretty ratty, try it. Cut them back. Don't cut them to the ground. Cut them back to wherever there's green growth. And many of them will perk up. And even if it doesn't reflower for you, it will many times look a lot better and perk up aesthetically. So you may not get flowers, but at least you have a nice healthy looking plant to look at. And then as we get a little bit closer to fall, start planting a few fall annuals in there. And you've got plenty of time left to enjoy your backyard. So I hope that helps. And please don't hesitate to chime in if you have other topics that come up that you'd like to talk. That's where we're getting the topics of what is on hand and what you're asking for. So hope you have a great day. Take care.